Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Thinning of the Veil podcast. I'm your host, Tia Smith, and this is an interview with Colette, and it is part two of these crazy journeys that she's taking. So hopefully you enjoyed the first one and you went through and you watched the super cool videos. The process will be the same on this one. If you want to watch at the end, the link is in the description of every video. So you can go watch these things because it's one thing to tell them. It's a whole nother thing to see them. So with that, we're just going to turn the time back over to Colette, and she's going to continue telling about her experiences. Hello, Colette.
Hello. So good to be back and chatting about this. I want to start out with this quote from Elder Bednar. If you want to understand inspiration, revelation, the Spirit speaking to you, go listen to every talk that he's done about that. Especially, he's got a great little clip. It's about 3 minutes about revelation. But I love that he says this, and think about this as I share some of these experiences because my experiences apply to you. In many of the uncertainties and challenges we encounter in our lives, God requires us to do our best, to act and not be acted upon, and to trust him. We may not see angels. Hear heavenly voices or receive overwhelming spiritual impressions. We frequently may press forward, hoping and praying, but without absolute assurance that we are acting in accordance with God's will. But as we honor our covenants and keep the commandments, and as we strive ever more consistently to do good and become better, we can walk with the confidence that God will guide our steps, and we can speak with assurance that God will inspire our utterances. This is in part the meaning of the scriptures that declares, "Then shall thy confidence wax strong in the presence of God." That's the theme for what I am going to be sharing with you. That pressing forward, acting one step at a time, going into your day and saying, "Okay, God, what do you need me to do? Help me to be where I need to be." So we talked a little bit about our experiences. We'd gone to Tahiti in January 2023. A month later, my husband comes home from the temple and he says, "I know this may sound weird, but I felt my grandma Emma when I was in initiatory." And I said, "I don't think that's weird." And that was the catalyst for his grandma Emma had done probably for 40 years, did genealogy work until she died. And she traveled to England and we inherited all of her research. And we've been a little bit of slothful stewards with that because we've been a little overwhelmed. And I mean, there's just so much to do, but we have all these folders and what do you do? But it was on his mind. It was kind of on my mind. I kind of started thinking about England a little bit and not traveling to England, it was just on my mind. And one day he's sitting on the couch across from me and he looks a little trepidatious. And I was worried like maybe somebody died. And he said, "I feel like we need to go to England." And remember, I was so done with traveling. And I said, uh, "Well, okay, when do you think we should go?" And again, that was just like so out of what I should have naturally responded. So again, as we look at patterns of revelation and inspiration, often might get something and then it stays with us. And so he's just started looking at things and we decided that we would go that summer and we were trying to figure out, we randomly came up again. God lets us use our agency. It's like the brother of Jared. Okay, well, maybe let's try these stones.
Mm-hmm.
And God works with us. And so we decided on 5 weeks and he found some flights and we're going to go. And as he's looking at his tree and kind of trying to prepare, and I'm looking at it, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? I noticed that he had this Welsh line. And I said, "Jared, do you realize you have this Welsh line?" And he said, "Well, yeah, but I mean, his heart was with his Yorkshire people." And I said, "Well, I think, this is a good portion of your tree. I think we should at least allocate like maybe a week of the time to Wales." So we finally agreed that that's what we would do. We would do Wales. And we knew nothing of his Welsh ancestry. In that time, as he prepared, he discovered on FamilySearch, there's a community tree and it's got genealogies. Well, one of them is the Welsh Welsh tree, and it's taken from 6 books from a man who I believe he was at Oxford, Peter Clement, and he had put back into like the 400s of the genealogy of some of these Welsh families, the people, the landed people that had land. Well, it turns out Jared's family's in these records.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, he's able to tap into his sixth great grandfather, and he's just going back and back and back. And they've been documented because in Wales, it was required to have a genealogy of 9 generations, I believe it was, maybe 7, in order to have land. So you had to prove your lineage. So there, it was very easy. And a lot of them is the further back you go, there's just like Margaret, the daughter of Thomas, and it kind of the patronymics. So he got going on that, and that was kind of our prep. So we go to England and Wales, and we're in Wales, and kind of like, well, let's go visit where they lived. And it was this estate called Penpont. Pretty much all of his ancestors are poor. They were coal miners, farmers. This grandpa, Henry Williams, was a reverend, and then there were many reverends in this line. We discovered as we started doing this, and they owned a lot of land. So we thought, let's go see the property. So um, we drive in, and we're pulling into this driveway, and there's this. I think I've got a video. The video I think is in here, but and maybe not that part. But we drive into the driveway, and I see this little sign over on the side. And it says to the church, and you look over on their property was a little church with a cemetery. I was
Well,
like,
he's a reverend. That makes complete sense.
so I'm like, and then I was like, oh my God, this must be, they must have family buried in the cemetery. So we went and visited just kind of walked around the grounds. And then we went back to the church, and we just got going using our Billion Graves app and photographing the cemetery. We're partway through. I'm cleaning off moss, and my husband's hungry for lunch. So I said, go get lunch and I'll keep working. So as I'm working, all of a sudden I'm like, I've got to go to the bathroom. And I'm looking around, the church is closed, or at least I thought it was. And there's a little house there. And I'm like, I got to find somewhere private. So I look, and there's a forest behind the church. So I thought I'll go out there. So I get up, and I'm walking over there, and I notice all of these beautiful ferns. And I thought, I need to photograph or video this for my mom. I'm just going to send her what it looks like, how beautiful it is. So I'm videoing these ferns, and I'm scanning, and all of a sudden I stop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think there's something back there. It looks like a big monument. And I felt like it was like Indiana Jones, like because it was all covered with stuff. And so I went over there, and they had this urn at the top that looked like it was going to topple over, little fence that was just, rusting away. And some of it you could see. And so I worked on trying to figure it out. And it said Williams. So I'm like, okay, I'm sure these are his family. But at that point, I had really no connection to these people. I just knew they were family. So when my husband came back, we went back over, and some of it we had to pull these vines off us because you could not read. And as we looked at it, all 4 sides had family names on it. And it was back in these woods that I would not have found if I had not needed to go to the bathroom. And that's why I say, I'm amazed at how God uses this natural life, the things, that we like to do or we need to do. And he gets us in the right place where we need to be. And we wrote down everything that was all on all the sides. Or I guess we videoed it. We didn't write it down till later. But we found a set of twins born in the early 1740s that had not been sealed to their parents.
You know how I feel about twins.
And then there were
it's just so cool.
it was amazing. She had 2 sets of twins, and one lived to adulthood and one set, and the others ended up dying. And then there were 2 sisters that had not had they were not on FamilySearch. They never married. They'd kind of just become these forgotten women. And so we were able to take those names to the Preston Temple in those next few days and get those babies sealed, and to get those women on their way to having their work done. It was incredible. I stood in awe at the end of that experience. Like, God, how did you let me be a part of this?
I think
That,
that story resonates with me so much. I think out of all your stories, that one's my favorite, just because I have family in Wales and I have twins and I've lost twins and sometimes, these babies are in between census records. I mean, really, it's the lost children that really get me every single time, but they're not lost to God. He is the shepherd and he will find them. Even if they're on a stone monument in a forest, I don't know how many years later, hundreds of years later, right? It's
yeah,
just, it's just truly remarkable.
it's awe-inspiring. And I think one of the most beautiful things is to be able to be proxy for that mother
Yeah.
when those babies are sealed. Because if you've ever had a loss, any kind of loss of a child or a family member, but especially a child, to know that they are now eternally sealed.
They're healed.
And the thing that's incredible to me is that in Wales, pre-1841, it's very difficult to pull families together. So these headstones were so important to say, this is who they are. And so then you kind of what you said is a perfect segue to what happened a little bit later in our trip. I mean, we had so many, I'm just like touching the iceberg of the things that we experienced, but we were in Manchester. And my husband really wanted to find his fourth great grandparents, the Jacksons, headstone. And so we went to the cemetery, no luck. That night he said, I really feel like we need to go back. So I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking this cemetery is so huge. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. He said, I think if we go to the office and ask them if they can help us. And so we did. And she gave us a number on a little sticky note and said, here it is. They're in the cemetery. Good luck. I have no idea where it's at. We have no map. So we went and I was able to, again, I felt prompted to just kind of video our experience. And we found the area where we were pretty sure that it was because there was a headstone with the next number, but it was just grass. And I was like, bummer, you know, it must have fallen down. And then I start thinking, and again, I know this was the spirit saying, pay attention. And I looked around and there were flat headstones. They're just the flat ones. And I all of a sudden realized they might be under the grass. So I grabbed a little stick and I go into the sod, clunk. It was like I hit buried treasure. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think it's under here. So I said, Jared, you've got to run to a hardware store and get a shovel. So he goes and buys this little shovel and we start to kind of dig around where we think they're the edges. We ended up pulling back the sod. It was like 3 or 4 inches of sod. It was heavy. And there we see Jackson. It was his John Jackson, his grandfather. And then his grandmother was there. But the thing that was the surprise was there was a little grandson, John Bright Jackson, 5 months old. And I was like, holy cow. So we're like, who does he belong to? And we looked on FamilySearch, no John Bright Jackson anywhere. Within that next day, through our kind of looking around and promptings of the spirit, my husband discovered that he was the son of their oldest son. And because he was born in 1863 and died 5 months later, he was between the censuses. And nobody would have even thought to have looked for him. It was absolutely amazing. And we were able to seal that little baby. So fast forward, we've had these amazing experiences in Wales and England, and we kind of think we're good. And that fall, my daughter says, you know, we're thinking about going to Croatia. And I said, sign me up, we'll go with you. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, we're good. Well, and the closer it got, the more I'm like, oh, I don't know if we should be doing this financially. Is this the best thing? And anyway, so we thought, okay, I think we can make this work. We'll use points for our stays for hotels. So we're going to minimize the expenses. The week that we were supposed to go to Croatia with them, we're sitting at dinner talking about the itinerary. And I said, is there any way that we can switch our flight? Because we're going to land. I realize we're landing on our anniversary. And I'm like, we're going to be so jet lagged. We're not going to want to do anything. And Jared said, they'll charge us an arm and a leg. And I said, well, can you just try? So the next day he's messaging the airlines and he texts me and says, I'm on with them and I think they're going to do it. They ended up bumping us to the day before for free. They, instead of flying through Seattle, kind of backtracking, they put us through New York and they gave us first class, no charge. Absolutely a miracle. And we were supposed to land at 9:30 on Friday. We were going to be landing on Saturday in the afternoon. So I'm all of a sudden I'm like, wow, we have 2 bonus days. But like, I don't really want to spend it in London. I mean, because we were just staying there near the temple until Monday. Then we were flying to meet our kids in Croatia. And the first thing that came to my mind, again, listen to those thoughts. You should go to Wales. And I was like, but then we're going to have to get an Airbnb and we're going to have to get a car. And we don't have that budgeted. But it kept kind of persisting with me. So that night I told my husband what I had thought. He said, actually, I had that same thought. So if you're married,
Right?
you and your spouse have similar thoughts, pay attention to them and
Yep.
don't be afraid to act on it.
Yep.
So we were still a little afraid. We were like, okay, let's see if we can do it. It wasn't until we were on the plane that he finally actually clicked the button to book our Airbnb so that we were going to stay in Wales. And he tells me, he said, okay, when we get to the airport, we have to book it because if we can be really timely, we'll have 1 hour to go to this little archive in Wales because they're only open Thursday, Friday. We're getting there Friday. And so we did. We made it to that archive. And I had no idea what we're doing there. I was just like, I was along for the ride. We end up in that 1 hour finding his ninth and 10th great grandfathers. We were blown away. I was sat in awe and thought, there must have been angels in that little airline office enabling us to be able to get to Wales to do that. And then the next day, because of our bonus day in Wales, we were able to go up to the National Archives and we found several wills that gave us the names of the wives and children and son-in-law. And these were from the 1600s. I mean, it was phenomenal. So that was our second time back to Wales. We have one more time that I'm going to tell you about. And I feel like our experience was a Nephi experience. We had to keep going back until we got the records, all the records that God needed us to get. In fact, one of my favorite, this is like one of my, I know I said I have lots of favorite scriptures, but I love this scripture. He says, this is in 1 Nephi 4, chapter 1, or verse 1. Let us go up again unto Jerusalem and let us be faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord. And at that point, it wasn't really a commandment at that point to go. It was just like, I mean, I had a thought. I didn't think it was a commandment, but maybe we should think of that more. Is those promptings are commandments or guides, or please do this because then this is going to be of benefit to you or to others. So we went to Croatia just on this high of what we had found. And we went to Croatia because my son-in-law's great grandfather emigrated from Croatia to New Zealand. And that's where his father was born. And somewhere in the line, somebody joined the church there. Again, I had zero time to prepare for this trip. I just said, I think we should go to the archives and visit the cemeteries. And I didn't know. And that's my other favorite. This was my mantra from our last trip. And I think it should be for all of us. It's in 1 Nephi 4:6. And I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do. So we went, and as we actually kind of backtrack a little bit, as we were preparing for this and trying to figure out how long do we stay on this little island of Korčula where his family was versus let's go to Slovenia and see all of the fun stuff there. My daughter and I both kind of had this feeling we should stay more time on Korčula. And so we cut out the fun stuff in Slovenia. And I mean, we saw just a little bit, but we stretched it out, which was such a blessing because of what you will see next. So this is a picture of my son-in-law, Matt, and with Antonia, who was our Airbnb hostess. So once we decided to stay for basically almost a full week on the island, we needed lodging. And Matt just happened to have a cousin who's a member of the church who just happened to have moved back to the island from New Zealand a few months before. So she reached out on the Facebook community page and said, does anybody have any places to rent? And Antonia had these two cute houses that used to be chicken coops. They're like stone chicken coops, but as you can see in the background, they were renovated to be Airbnbs for $50 a night. I mean,
That's
Can you believe
cool.
it? So we stay one night at another Airbnb, and then we reach out to her and just say, when can we check in? And she says, you can check in now, which was great because we're like, good, we can get settled in before we go to the archive. Little did we know how important that checking in early and meeting specifically with her was. Because as we're checking in and giving her our passports, she said, well, what brings you here? And Kirsty said, well, we're looking for my husband's great grandfather, Yakov Shegedin. And as soon as she said Shegedin, Antonia just perked up and she's like, can you say that again? And so then she says it again and she says, Yakov Shegedin Chali. And we're like, well, maybe. It ended up that she got on the phone and she was able to make phone calls to two different cousins of Matt's that he had no idea lived on the island that she knew.
Wow.
We were astounded. So she said, I think they want to meet with you. And so we're like, oh, great. So we went on our merry way and we went to the archive and we met with an amazing archivist. And he comes out with these files and sets them on the ground. And they were the wills and other legal documents for his fourth great grandparents, his third great grandparents, and there was somebody else. But he just opens up these folders, and I'm bummed that it doesn't show the pictures of it. But maybe if there's, I can't remember if I did a video on this, but it was absolutely amazing as he's reading through these documents and Matt's looking on his phone at his family tree app and like, oh yes, that's them. That's them. And it was the most incredible experience to have this connection finally back to this homeland. So we had great help there at the archive and we were able to get pictures of these documents. This is how they store the documents. Um, they're just all in these little folders. Some of them actually were on the floor that were just mice eaten and water damaged, and that they're still trying to work through. But he just went and found this little pile and brought it to us. Um, and then he said, um, "Go to Dubrovnik." And so we'll show you the Dubrovnik in a minute. But after we'd been in Dubrovnik, while we were driving to Dubrovnik, we got a phone call from Yaroslav. So Yaroslav is on the far left, and he is a very close cousin to my husband, or to my, not my husband, to my son-in-law, Matt, who's just sitting there, standing to the right of him. And Yaroslav said, I would love to meet you, and I would love to show you the family property. And so we went to meet him, and he took us right to the house that we had walked by the night before. And we're like, oh, this is a really cool house. And this was the house of Matt's ancestors. And so Yaroslav said, let me take you and we'll drive you up the mountain. And I want to show you the property. And so he drove us up this mountain and said his grandfather was this, he owned all these vineyards, olive vineyards. And he took us up to the little house and he went to go unlock the door and he says, come in, come in. So he took us in, and on the wall were three pictures. The one you see right there in front of you on this table is his fourth great grandparents. And I don't know if you can see my daughter's eyes, the tears. How did we had no idea that this cousin, these pictures were all just waiting there for us to see. And he was so wonderful. He made us lemonade from his tree. And we saw that's the picture of his third great grandparents that we were able to see. I mean, Matt, you can see the smile on his face. I mean, this was absolutely incredible. And there was another picture on there that we had just added. So not this one. I don't think I got it on here, but we had just added the people that were on the third picture, which was Yaroslav or Jerry. It was his grandfather and his two aunts. We had just added them into FamilySearch. They were not in there. It just blew our minds that we came all the way to Croatia to see if we could find anything about Yakov Shegedin, and there he is with his wife. And another thing that was just amazing, there's so much I just want to share. His wife, Mara, the day before when our helper, I can't remember his name, Tonko was reading the will to us, it said that she was found dead on the mountain. She had left home at the beginning of December, and several weeks later, they found her on the mountain. And when we talked to Yaroslav, he told us this story. What had happened is she had gone, a big storm was coming in, and she wanted to go gather the goats. She was really worried about them, and she got lost on the mountain, and she ended up passing away up there. And
Mm.
it just, all of a sudden, we had the day before, we had a document and we got a little bit more information. And the next day, this whole family has unfolded to us. And now we know a little bit of the story. We had this connection to Yaroslav, and our hearts, I mean, our hearts were full. We're like, we're so happy. We're done. And then the next day, we go to Dubrovnik, um, and we get to the archive, and it said it was supposed to be open until 3. We get there and he says, sorry, we're closing in 45 minutes. I don't know why this happens to us when we're traveling on our trips, but it does. So he brings out these documents. You look at this book. This is like from the 1600s. And here we are. Okay, go for it. So we're like, okay, I guess we're going to start taking photos. We ended up leaving there with every single document that we needed, every single one for that parish from the beginning of time. And you can see Matt here. He is just like
He's doing the
ecstatic.
happy dance. I know that.
Yes,
It's a fan,
yes.
it's like a thinning of the veil happy dance.
It was incredible. So we're like, we've got pictures, we've got these wills, we've got these stories, we've got these documents, they were parish records that we were able to get all of them. And then on the last day, well, and then actually, I think it was on the drive home from there, we get a phone call from Slobodan. And this is Matt and Slobodan. And Slobodan says, we thought he said, make you a meal, but he took us to dinner and fed us this traditional Croatian meal. And this is a picture of Matt and Slobodan looking at pictures and sharing them with each other of their ancestors. So Matt's great grandfather was his grandfather's brother. And you can see that he's sharing pictures. And as we're looking, we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much family resemblance. We could not believe the pictures that we had never seen that he was showing us. And then you'll see at the very end. So on the next day, that night he said, tomorrow I want to take you to see the properties, the houses. And we were worried. We're like, oh, is it going to be the same place where the other cousin had showed us? And he showed us a little bit of that, but some of it was different. He took us to a cousin that spoke no English. We tried to have conversation. And in the middle of the conversation, this man gets up, walks back, sets these papers in front of me. It was 48 pages of genealogy. We just, as we walked away that day, and this man was a little inebriated while we were talking to him, my son-in-law, who is a comedian, said, I feel like we just got the brass plates from Laban. But we came away from that trip just so overcome. We found every possible thing for Matt now to be able to do his family history, for his family to be able to look into these records and be able to do the work for these people. It was absolutely, absolutely mind-blowing. So we came home from that trip, got back to life. Fast forward to fall. In fall, in the chaos of just regular life. And I am told about your podcast. And so I'm listening to the podcast for a couple of weeks, and I have a very busy work week, and I have one little teeny moment that I can go to the temple. And that night before, I said, Heavenly Father, I am so tired, but I'm willing. I'll go to the temple in the morning to do this endowment because I printed off 2 cards on Sunday. Very overambitious thinking, sure, I can go. And I woke up at 5:40, just wide awake. And I thought, okay, I'm going. So I had a hard time trying to decide which card to take. They were both from the 2 women that we had found from our first England trip. And when I got into the temple parking lot, I felt like I should go for Frances. And so I took Frances's card into the temple. And as soon as I walked in there, I knew she was there. I just had this warmest feeling. And all through the endowment, it was not, I just want you to know, like, my endowment sessions are not like always amazing spiritual experiences. Like, a lot of times my mind is all over thinking about problems and then trying to refocus and then saying, Heavenly Father, help me with this problem, or give me this idea, or just, keep my mind focused. And it was in that endowment session that I heard the words, go back to Wales go back to the archive. And it wasn't words that I could hear in my ears. It was in my mind, but it was the most strong commandment that I have ever heard in my life. And at that moment, if you know the song, The Spirit of God Like a Fire is Burning, that is what I felt right here. And up now my eyes. And I could not stop crying. And I knew that's what we had to do. And it was not in the most ideal time to go at all. And that was my first thought. But because of all these foundational experiences that I've had that have built my faith, I was like, I'm not even going to look at those waves. I'm going to look at Jesus and I'm going to know that he commanded me to do this. I can do it. So I
And
went home.
I think we talked to each other either shortly before or shortly after you had that, because we were talking about doing a podcast, and then you told me you were going back to Wales. I'm like, we are not doing that until you go back, because you had told me the previous stories, and I was thinking, I was having faith in you and your
Yeah.
experiences
Oh, you said,
because
oh, I know you're going to have those
yeah,
your great experiences. And I'm going, okay, I know I am. I know I am. Just kind of like, I think I can. I think I can. But like, it's
yeah,
that going forward, not knowing beforehand.
yeah. And
Um,
I was getting real-time updates from you where
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And then this is happening. I'm like, I was like riding this roller coaster with you. And it was just so cool. So tell us about that.
yeah. So it was. I told my husband, I said, this is what I experienced in the temple. I said, so when do you want to go? And I said, well, and this is the other thing, how we had these credits, airline credits that were going to expire because of my husband's travel and he had canceled a trip, so we had to use them. And we were going to just go to Tennessee to visit our daughter. And I said, why don't we use those credits to do this? And then do we have enough, hotel points that could pay for most of our lodging? And he said, well, how long do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. And kind of the same thing like Norway. I don't know. So I said, well, I want to go long enough that we get what we need to get because we'd already been back to Wales twice. Obviously, we didn't get what we needed. So I just randomly threw out, well, what about 3 weeks? Can we do 3 weeks? Do we have enough points to be able to pay for most of it? And so we were able to book that. And then we invited our daughter along. We said, if you want to pay for the flight and come with us for a break, and I'll be your study buddy because she's in law school. And so for her, that was an act of faith to
Yeah.
come. And she was an integral part of us helping because she was another body as we were in that archive to find people. And so we went and we flew. We had this great idea. Let's go into Amsterdam. We'll see a few Christmas markets and then we'll fly from there to Bristol and it'll be the same price as if we just flew to Bristol. Well, the biggest windstorm came up that canceled our flight. I mean, I felt there was opposition. And that's another thing is just remember when you have opposition doing this work, know that it's par for the course,
Yeah.
but keep going
It's
because
expected.
we expected it. But as we read in Jacob 5, it's us with the Lord and he will make his. So we had another cyclone. We had a cyclone, Dara, that was the first in 17 years. And it caused us to not be able to go to church. They canceled the archive for a day. So we lost 2 days of archive time, but God was able to help us. So the morning that we were flying into Bristol is the morning that the ancestor's plea was released. And I'm in the airport and I put that song on. And that was my theme song. I listened to it over and over and over again on that flight and through the rest of the time because we, just as Nephi, were going back into Wales and we had no idea what we were going to find or what we were supposed to look for. I had been praying daily. What do we do? What do we do? What are we looking for? And the 2 times that I had inspiration, 2 of the 3 times was when I was half asleep. And we find that when we're in that almost waking moments is often we will get revelation. And the first one was ask for a cemetery map. So I'm like, okay, I'll ask for a cemetery map. The other one was that night when I was asleep, I had a name of a place come into my head. It started with a B, and I remember what you said about writing it down, and I was like, I don't have anything near me. I will remember this for sure. I wake up, I do not remember it. I just know it starts with a B, and it was a place. And then the other thing that had happened the day before when we flew in and we weren't able to get to the archive because of the canceled flight, we took Ashlyn and showed her the little estate Pempont. And then there was another estate right next to it, which his 10th great grandfather had been on that. And then they'd separated into this other one. We'd focused on Pempont where we found the monument in the previous trip. And so we took her by Abercamlis. After we left, we went by the little church, looked at some headstones, and Abercamlis just kept coming into my mind all evening. And I thought, okay, well, that's the only thing that's coming to my mind. So by the time we got to the archive, I had cemetery map, Abercamlis, and that little place name that I couldn't remember that started with a B. That was all I had. And so we went into the little archive and we said, we've been here before and we found his ninth and 10th great grandfathers. Do you happen to have a cemetery map? That's all I knew to say. So she said, let me go check. She comes back with a binder, pulls out a cemetery map showing where everybody in that cemetery was buried. And then she said, oh, and you might be interested in this. And she pulls out pages and pages of transcriptions that somebody had did several hundred years ago of the really old headstones, the ones that I had taken pictures of the first time we were there. But when I got home, some of them the lighting was so poor that we could not see it. So I dished them off to my daughter. I don't know what Jared was doing at that point. And I was just so excited to see these. So I start taking pictures. And on the 6th page, all of a sudden I see Bulgoed pop up, and it was a place name. And then I look at the name and it's William Llewellyn. It was like my husband's like 6th great uncle. And he was one of those headstones that I had showed my daughter the night before that was poor quality and I couldn't see the bottom half. The entire thing was written out. I was blown
Now,
away.
was that the B? Was that the
That
B?
was the B.
That
That
was
was the B place
the
that
B
I
word,
didn't
B
remember.
place.
Yeah. And so I start reading through it. I start comparing, and everybody was on FamilySearch except for a little 8-year-old boy. It
Mm.
was so incredible. I'm like, this was our first thing that we had as we went forth, not knowing what we were going to do. I'm like, thank you, Heavenly Father. If it was just for him, thank you.
If
But
it's
it was
just for
not for
one, how great shall be your
him.
joy.
Yes. I was just like, this is it. This is great. And so that day, we were immersed. I said, okay, Abercamlis, do you have anything about Abercamlis? She's like, we've got boxes and boxes. What do you want? And I said, okay, let's see. So she brings out some boxes and we start going through the documents. They were back to the 1500s. There were wills, there were deeds, there were marriage agreements, and they were all about his family. Every single one was the family because it was an estate. They just kept every single important legal document that they had. So I think the earliest was 1589. Like as we unfolded, because they're made out of animal skin, these records, they're really hard to open because they probably were opened up once or twice in the last 2, 3, 400 years, whatever.
Yeah.
So we end up one of the big finds. What I mean, there were so many, so many. But
You were constantly like texting me pictures. I'm like, no way, this is
so
amazing.
so many. We have thousands of pictures on
Yeah.
my phone, and I felt very overwhelmed. I feel like that was mission number one. Mission number two is now going through each of those. And so I told Heavenly Father, every day I will touch one of those photos, even if it's just to crop it. If I'm too tired and I can't, but I'm going to work on finding out how they are connected and adding them to our tree. So one of them was a marriage document, and my daughter's. Actually, let me do the will first. So there was a will. And it was the Owens family, these ninth and 10th great grandfathers. And it was a marriage document in relation to, I'm trying to even remember. Is that what it was? No, it was a will. It was will of one of those. And it ended up, we found 3 missing daughters of this grandfather we found back in May. One of them was Francis, a different Francis that never married. Another one, her name was Susan, and she married, it said, the wife of John Brewster. We're like, holy cow, to be able to get that connection. So that night when we got back from the archive, my daughter Ashlyn could not stop looking. It was just, she just kept working. She found over 70 family members because of that name in that will. So we were able to get all of those people added into FamilySearch. We found another document. It was a marriage document. And I look at it and the name just sounds kind of familiar. I said, Jared, don't you have, I'm blanking on his name right now. Don't you have this guy in your tree? And he said, yeah, that's my sixth great grandfather. I'm like, this is his like marriage document. So little background, if you have any kind of property of significance, when you got married, you had to have a legal contract to guard the rights of the woman as well as the man. And so in this, it lists, oh, it was James Powell. It says James Powell, and then it talks about his father, Jenkin Powell, and I think his wife was Anne Penry. And he said, no, I'm reading it to him. He said, no, that's not his dad. And he says, he shows me on FamilySearch. No, his dad's Thomas Powell. I said, Jared, no, this is his dad. Anyway, we discovered that his grandfather, James Powell, was incorrectly linked in the 1700s to his father, to the wrong father.
Mm.
Would not have found that if we would not have gone back. And so we were able to disconnect him from the wrong family, add Jenkin and Anne in as his parents. And then over the next week, we ended up finding, when we went to the National Archives, we ended up finding more wills that took us back. And then some information that was floating on FamilySearch just in the records to pull it all together to go 4 more generations back.
Mm.
It absolutely, absolutely mind-blowing. And yesterday, I was trying to take a nap and I couldn't. And I woke up and I thought, okay, I'm going to go do, Jared said, I've got a stack of names that need baptized and I don't have anybody to do them. So I said, I'll do them. I did not realize that Eleanor, who was the mother of Jenkin, was one of those names. I didn't even know it until I got home. And was it when I got home? No, it was when I did the baptism and the spirit it was so palpable. And I felt this feeling of, I never thought this would be possible because she was born in the late 1600s. So I worked at the temple last night and I was able to do her initiatory. And then this morning I woke up bright and early, not of my own free will and choice. It just happened. And I
We were
thought, okay.
both up. I was up at 4:30. You were up.
And I thought, I'm going to go do her endowment. And so I went and I went to the temple this morning. But I want to make sure, oh, I didn't share this other part. I need to share this other part. So I just am amazed as I look back and I've read this, I can't even tell you, probably almost every day since we've gone on this trip, I read these scriptures. We have read this over and over and over again as members of the church. But I'm hoping that all who listen will look at it in a new way, that it is so applicable. The Book of Mormon was written for our day. In 1 Nephi 3:7, I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded. For I know that the Lord giveth no commandments unto the children of men, save he shall prepare a way for them that they may accomplish the thing which he commanded them. Now, all of my previous trips up until this last Wales experience were just kind of, okay, let's do this kind of a thing. Like it was kind of our ideas. This was my first time where it was a commandment to go. And I've told people, I've said, I think I needed that in the temple. We don't always have to have a commandment or even revelation in the temple to act on it. But I think that the Lord knew that I needed to have no doubt where it came from so that I would go and do because of the magnitude of what we found. Every day since we've been back, my husband has been adding and adding and adding people from this trip. There was so much. And then First Nephi 4:1. Let us go up. Let us be faithful in keeping the commandments of God. He is mightier than all the earth. Remind yourselves of that every time you get discouraged, whatever it is. He is mightier, always. And then out of verse 3, let us go up. The Lord is able. I read that over and over and over again during our time in Wales because every day, we went to the little archive and then then we had a little break because the archive was only open on Thursday and Friday. So I just prayed every day, help us to know what we're to do. So we went up to Manchester and our daughter was going to fly home to go take her law finals. And our plan was to go to a baptism for this great guy named Luke. He's a young single adult that learned about the church through BYU and BYU football. He wanted to follow a college football team. And
Go
then
Cougs.
yeah, and he got curious about the church. And this last fall, he started taking the discussions. And so he had a baptismal date and it coincided with when we were going to be there. So we planned to go to his baptism and then he got COVID.
Mm.
And again, how does God work through the things that we think are unfortunate? So we take our daughter up to Manchester. She flies off, and we were like, well, the archive isn't open until Thursday. We've got a few days. What do we do? And so we said, well, let's stay maybe just one day. We'll stay one day in Manchester because we thought maybe Scotland. I don't know. We were just trying to figure out. We didn't know. And so we booked one day at the hotel, and then we ended up booking another and another. And what had happened is on that first day that we were there, we ended up going to the library, and my husband said, I just really want to find the headstone of my other great grandparents that are buried in that Manchester cemetery. So remember our other discovery of John Bright Jackson. So the lady helps us find out where the plot is. And then while we're standing there, I said, so does it list John Bright with the Jacksons? Because she looked that up as well. And she said, no, he's not listed here. I'm like, oh, that's interesting because he's listed on the headstone. And she types his name in and he was 4 grave markers over. And I thought that's really interesting. So I said, who are the people in there? And she listed off these names and I didn't recognize them. And so I said, okay, well, give me that number too. So we went to the cemetery and we found the spot where his other grandparents were buried. So their children married each other and then they joined the church and emigrated to Utah. So it's these grandparents of these pioneer people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say to all of you who are listening that have pioneer ancestors and have heard the phrase, oh, it's all been done. There's so much work to be done. There's that one to find, or two, or many. So we found that headstone spot, and it was under grass. And I said to Jared, I just laughed, and I recorded this. I was like, I can't believe this. Can you go buy another shovel? So
You need a shovel.
And I was not prepared to be digging in this cold, wet, muddy, and my husband had been in a car accident this summer, and so he couldn't do any of the digging. And so I'm digging and we pull back. The headstone is pristine because it's been covered for so long, and it's his grandparents. And it was beautiful. We found it. There was nothing new, but it was beautiful. But I keep feeling this pull. Go to that spot where John Bright actually was buried. So we uncover that headstone. And I'm looking at these names, and at the top is George Pemberton, and then his wife, Elizabeth, and then there's baby, little child. There were 5 children, and then there were 6 grandchildren. All died young. And I knew that we'd been led to that spot for a reason. And I'm like, I don't think they're related, but we're going to get them into FamilySearch. Then it'll help somebody else. And that was my thought. And then I thought, why in the world was John Bright? He's not listed on this headstone, he's listed on the other stone. And I look at one of those babies who died at several months old and died the day after little John Bright died. So I think these two babies had died right at the same time. This grave was opened up, probably for convenience.
Yeah.
He was buried in that same plot and then later memorialized on his grandparents' headstone. So that night, we go home and I start to put him into FamilySearch, and the George Pemberton's in there. His temple work was done in 1974. Elizabeth's in there, and she's waiting to have. She's is shared with Temple, um, the her endowment, and they have one son.
Hmm.
And all those five babies were not on there. And that one son, it was his children that were on there. We were able to find 11 children on that headstone that we were able to add into FamilySearch. So then I decide, well, what the heck, I'm going to see if I'm related. And I click on and they were my cousin.
Let's go.
Can you believe that?
I totally can.
I was just, I was dumbfounded,
Yeah.
absolutely dumbfounded. So we have all of these babies, and Elizabeth now has her endowment done. And so I'm hoping that this weekend that we can go and seal those babies to Elizabeth and George. Had no idea that we would go back to that exact same cemetery and find people that I didn't even know were related
Yeah.
and be able to get them into FamilySearch and to be able to get their temple work done. It was just mind blowing. And then I think the final little story. I mean, there were so many more things that happened, but it was praying daily. Heavenly Father, help us. When we had that 2 day little, I call it a little miracle bonus trip right before Croatia, I discovered that there were 7 letters from Anne Williams, who's Jared's, I think it's his aunt, one of his great aunts, and this was the early or late 1700s, to this Maria Yates, who was her cousin. And we tried to get it, and they said, sorry, you have to give us 3 days notice before we can, because we have to pull it out of the archive. So I was determined to find those letters this time because I am like a Jane Austen. I'm a Downton Abbey fan. I love the old English, everything. So I thought this will be really fun to read these letters. So when we get to that archive, the day after that really big storm and everything to be canceled, I didn't think they were going to be able to get it for us because I'd been a little bit late in requesting it, but they bring it out and it's in a bound book, these letters. And absolutely incredible. You feel like you're reading like a Jane Austen book, the writing of this cousin to this cousin that just loves her cousin so dearly. And it turns out that this cousin actually married into the family. So somehow I've got to figure out exactly how they're cousins. I don't have that whole Maria Yates Osborne. I think her mother was an Osborne and it connects in, but I know they're cousins. And as I started reading, I haven't even had time to even go through I've only been able to go through a couple of the pages of letters. But in there, she talks about my Aunt Williams died this past Thursday. The funeral is this coming Thursday at 10 a.m. She will be buried in the church where her father, her grandparents, great grandparents were buried. I was blown away. She talks about this Aunt Morgan, and she just says the last name. So I'm like trying to figure out, okay, who are these people? This Aunt Morgan who um, was married a second time. I have no second marriage at all for her. So that is something that I now get to go forward and see if I can find. Um, she also in this letter, she ends up talking about the will of this aunt that died and everything she gave and to who she gave it to and how they were related. I mean, it just blew my mind. Blew my mind. Um,
So
so
what
I
have you learned? What is the main takeaway from all of this? What is the one thing that has stuck with you about like either God or the pattern of revelation or how these things happen? What is it that stuck with you?
I think that I think it goes back to an experience I had at the beginning of that first Wales trip. We'd been there for 4 days. Had no idea on that trip. Even on that, I was like, I don't know what we're doing here. I'm kind of letting Jared lead, and he didn't really know. I was like, let's go see what we can find. And I was starting to have some really bad back issues. I had some other health things going on. And I woke up one morning, it's raining. We're in Stratford upon Avon, and he's showering, and I am in bed. I just bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, I just want to go home. I was so homesick. And I'm like, I don't know why we're here. And the words came into my mind, and their hearts were depressed, and they wanted to turn back. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's a scripture. I need to find that scripture. So I pulled out my phone and put those, and their hearts were depressed, and it pulled up Alma 26. And I love, this is what I get from this is my lesson. And I read this over and over and over again. And at the beginning of Alma 26 is the scripture I shared in part 1, and I'll share that with you again. But this is when I went to Alma 26 and I read this. Now, when our hearts were depressed and we were about to turn back, behold, the Lord comforted us and said, Go amongst thy brethren and bear with patience thine afflictions, and I will give unto you success. And I held on to that. And I had little promptings of, I found a chiropractor that helped my back. And he gave me this little thing that helped me in the car so that my back was good the whole rest of the time. And then when I came back, I studied I read this whole chapter a lot. But when I came back, these are the things that stuck with me is I go back now to that first verse that I shared, and I likened it to myself coming from Utah to Oregon. But previous to that, I applied it this way. And now these are the words of Ammon to his brethren, which saith thus, My brothers and my brethren, behold, I say unto you, how great reason have we to rejoice. For could we have supposed when we started from the land of Utah that God would have granted unto us such great blessings? And now I ask, what great blessings has he bestowed upon us? Can ye tell? Behold, I answer you, for our brethren, the Welsh and the English, were in darkness. How many of them are brought to behold the marvelous light of God? And this is the blessing which hath been bestowed upon us, that we have been made instruments in the hands of God to bring about this great work. Behold, thousands of them do rejoice and have been brought into the fold of God. Behold, the field was ripe, and blessed are ye, for ye did thrust in the sickle and did reap with your might. And then it goes on to say, and this is what I want to say to all of you as a testimony of the things that I have experienced and of the things that I know that you will experience as you act in faith and just start small. Take one name to the temple. This is in verse 8. Blessed be the name of our God. Let us sing to his praise. Yea, let us give thanks to his holy name, for he doth work righteousness forever. For behold, if we had not come up out of the land of Utah, these our dearly beloved brethren, who have so dearly beloved us, would have also been strangers to God. Yea, and this is my testimony, I know that I am nothing. As to my strength, I am weak. Therefore, I will not boast of myself. These experiences we have are not in any way boasting, but wanting to show God's hand, if we're willing. In his strength, I can do all things. Yea, behold, many mighty miracles we have wrought in this land of Wales, for which we will praise his name forever. Behold, how many thousands of our brethren has he loosed from the pains of hell, and they are brought to sing redeeming love. And I have felt that in the temple as I have gone to do their work. Yea, let us glory in the Lord. We will rejoice, for our joy is full. And then the final thing. Yea, who can say too much of his great power and of his mercy and of his long suffering towards the children of men? Yea, and it shall be given unto each one of us to bring thousands of souls to repentance. Each one of us has the ability to start with one. And if we will continue, this work will continue into the millennium. We are here because we were born to be at this time, to be part of the Abrahamic covenant, to be part of that birthright, to help gather his children, whether it be here on a little computer in our house, or whether God requires us to go on a mission, or whether he encourages us through the Spirit to take a stop at the side of a road to photograph a cemetery.
Thank you, Colette. My friends, I hope that I'm glad I didn't have to talk very much because I was just in tears. But I think we must thrust in our sickle with all of our might, trusting that the Lord is going to lead us to places that we never thought possible. And it may not be in a foreign country, but it may be on a mountainside, and it may be crossing the ocean. But it is to find those thousands of people who love us on the other side of the veil and give them the ability to covenant with the Savior, that they may also sing the joy of redeeming love. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a treat, and I think we're tied at the hip now for a long time. And I'm hoping one day, if you get a prompting, I get a prompting, we can go to Wales so bad, in England and Scotland.
I will go back. I will go back.
Maybe one day. But thank you so much for joining us. And remember, my friends, that there are videos after this one that you can watch that show some of the experiences that she's had. Thank you for joining us for a second one. I hope that you have found something that has touched your soul, and I believe that the Spirit probably is urging you quietly to do something. Every one of us must be about our Father's business. So, well, I will also put in a link to that Ancestors Plea song on this video, because I think it's changed all of our lives. It's like the anthem to
Yes.
driving to the temple and doing the work. I put that on all the time just to keep me in that mind space. So thank you, Colette. Thank you, Becca Sorensen, for your talents. And we must move forward, my friends. Next week, we'll be talking about the experiences that Colette has had, the experiences that you're having has actually put in a math equation, and you will find out how astronomically impossible all of these miracles have been in numerical value. And I will also share some stories from listeners who they didn't think having experiences, and now they're having them, and they've just reached out to me. So that's next week's podcast. So thank you again, Colette. And who knows, maybe we'll need to do another one. We'll see ya. Bye, my friends.
So I sent my husband to go get some lunch while I work on his headstone. There's just nothing so serene as sitting in this little cemetery here in Wales and think of those beautiful ferns and trying to make this discovery. This is just so surreal. All these ferns in the forest, and it looks like there's a little path actually right there. Hey, I just noticed something. Looks like there's a headstone back there. I'm gonna go take a look. Just as I saw that headstone over there in the forest, it started to pour rain. So I brought all of my tools, and I'm staying out of the rain because I don't have a jacket, because Jared left with all of my stuff to get some lunch. All right, here's this little path. Wow, this is like really cool. Holy moly, look at that thing. I'm excited to see who it is. It'd be really cool if it was his great-great-great-great-grandfather. And it's very holy. Look at how much that sunk down there. All right, let's see. This is incredible. I feel like Indiana Jones. All right. This is Eliza Williams, it looks like. Let me see. Looks like something Williams. Okay, I took a second, and actually what it looks like it says up here is Philip. Philip Williams. Oh, this is incredible. And then it says Esquire, I think, or no, I think it's like probably like the child of, see, E-S-Q something, son of Henry Williams. Not sure what that says right there. And then it says, who died the 2nd of November, 1794, aged 62. Also, the remains of Eliza Williams, widow of the above named Philip Williams, Esquire. Let's see. Not sure what that says right there, but on the south side of this vault in the same grave with her sister. This is cool. Sister Diana. Look what I'm getting. Diana Williams. So she was a Williams married to a Williams. Let's see. Lie the remains of Charlotte Williams, daughter of Henry Williams, June. Is that June? Oh, Junior Esquire. Let's see, who died on the 18th day of June, 1827. These are all pre-Wales censuses, aged 74 years. Oh my gosh. Something on the south side of this vault near the grave of her sisters lie the remains of Martha, looks like Edwards, widow of Francis Edwards, Esquire, MD, and daughter of Henry Williams, Esquire, Jr., who died on the 17th January 1828, aged 77 years old. Holy cow. I am seriously blown away that I found this little thing in the forest because it started to rain. I came out here to get out of the rain. And you can see this big monument. So they've got, if you look over here, you can see how it sunk down. So this is where some of them were buried. And then I think on the other side, oh my gosh, I just noticed there's another inscription on the other side. And then my guess is somebody's buried on this other side, but it has not sunk down. And it looks like, oh my gosh, there's another There's another transcription. This is incredible. I'm going to look at FamilySearch for a minute and check out the tree. Okay, so I looked on FamilySearch and I wasn't pulling it up really quickly, so maybe they're not in there, but I'm going to look at this other side and see what we can see. Wow, so as I was standing here trying to read, I just looked at how this wrought iron is so decaying. Like it's ready to fall over at any point. So let's see, if zooming in I can read this better. So it says, it looks like the remains of Anne, late wife to Henry Williams. So we see a lot of Henry in here. And mother, oh sorry, that had a bug on me. This is crazy. So the little spot where I thought it was the edge of a vault, it's actually the top of a headstone. I'll show you. So I started rubbing this.
Yep, here's another one.
Oh my gosh. And look, it's actually a headstone. We're gonna uncover this thing. Look, it's all in the dirt.
Twins! Twins! There's twins!
Yeah, right here, I was just cutting off this and it says twins right here. Oh my gosh. And then there's something about 7 weeks. Twins, 7 weeks, aged. Gotta pull this off over here.
Very precarious.
It's a good thing I got this knife yesterday at the little country store. Although it's getting very dull. It says the following children is what it says at the top. Okay, I think up here it says here lies, and then it says the body. So bodies of the following other children of the said Henry Williams.
Henry,
Anne,
not Henry. Penry with
Henry,
a P.
Yeah, Henry Williams. And Anne, his wife.
So Penry and Anne Williams.
Yeah, Anne, his wife are interred within the church of this parish. So they're inside that building. Of this parish, in the grave of their said grandfather. Henry Williams, Esquire. Samuel Williams, who died August 17th, it looks like. 1716, aged 4 months, 3 days. Mary Catherine Williams, who died September 9th, 17, it looks like 1746, I think. I need some water on this. And the 3rd year of his something. I don't know where the rest of it is. The third year of his, and then there's nothing there.
And who's that?
That's Charles Williams.
Charles Williams.
And I think he's the twin
Of William Williams.
of William Williams. Yeah, because it says twins right here.
Okay.
And then Where am I? Oh, okay. So this says Charles Williams, who died March 19th, 1760 in the third, it looks like the third year of his age. Okay. So then in the south recess of this vault lie the remains of Henry Williams, Esquire, son of Philip Williams, Esquire, by his wife Eliza, who died on the 16th of January, 1847, aged 64. Okay, so this has been an emotionally taxing experience. So there you've got that urn at the very top that just looked like it's going to fall. But you can see we cleared off the moss and the ivy from this headstone and got all four sides. So pretty crazy. Okay, we are back at the cemetery that we were working on yesterday, and we got a number of a plot. And so these old flat headstones, they have a little number in the corner. I'll show you. So see, there's that stamped number. It looks like 5562, and I think we're looking in the 4000s. So I think it's going to be somewhere down this hill. So we'll see what happens. We may have to go get a little flat-headed shovel to uncover some of these headstones. Wow, there's a lot of flat-headed stones through here. What's the number we're looking for? 45?
4585?
And what do we need?
4365.
So few rows down here. Wow, look at these are all flats. 4166. And we need what? 43?
4365.
Yeah. Oh, here's 4311. 15. So it's probably somewhere in Holy Moly area. I mean, say the number again. 43 what?
It's 4476. So it kind of bounces around.
We need 43.
Yeah, 43, 29, 28, so it gets bigger.
And you need 43 what?
65.
I keep forgetting. Okay, let's see what this one is right here. Oh, that's a big monument. I mean, they might not be a flat one. They could be an upright one.
Kind of bounce around.
Huh. Right, but right here would be the 43. If this is 4266, then right in here, see that wall fell down right here. It potentially could be underneath that. But it looks like we need to get like a flat-headed shovel so we can kind of slide the dirt off.
Yeah.
So we wandered around and we saw that there were numbering of the flat stones, and it appears that this little section right here, we've kind of tried to use a stick to see if maybe the headstone's buried like this one. So it seems like this is probably the section, this is probably right here where his grandparents were buried. And then this monument was done about 20 years after for somebody else who died. So kind of guessing that they had an upright stone, not as big as that. I don't think they had a lot of money, but it's kind of a bummer. And then now you can see that this tree that was planted right next to the headstone got cut down, but eventually just knocked over this whole wall. So if they were under this spot, there's no way to get it. Okay, so Jared just yelled to me that he found a 4366, so there must be a 4365 over on this other side. So let's see.
66. Right here.
And they were number 65?
4365.
So you think you're standing on their grave?
Yeah, I think I'm standing off of it.
And then what year was this one? Oh, this was 63 and they were 48.
Yeah, there's 4293.
So 4366 right there. So that means right here it'll be 65, and it's totally grown with grass. So probably was one of the uprights. Okay, so we were over there on that other side and thought we came to the area, but then my husband thought I should come over here. So I want to show you something. We think, we are pretty sure we know where he was buried, but we're noticing a grass pattern, and I'll show you this. So if you can see, there's headstone, headstone, and then there's nothing, but I don't know if you can tell. Oh, right here you really can. See how there's the grass is not growing well there, and then it's really long. So most likely there's a headstone that's sunk. So we were noticing that over here. So this is where I'm pretty sure that he is buried, because it's their number 4365 and this is 4366. So that means they would be buried right here. And if you notice this, the grass right in this area is not growing as well. So I'm gonna try with my stick. He went to get my broom. We may get a little shovel so we can see, although it's kind of suspicious to be digging in a graveyard with a shovel. But you know, when you come all the way from the United States, you want to see if you can find your great-great-grandparents' gravestone. We should be able to just pull that grass back. Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. Look at that. You want me to show it? All right, so that's 4675, right? 65, which is what we're looking for. Jackson! Woohoo! We have found our family. How do you feel about that?
Go Cougs. It's awesome.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Holy cow. Okay, so we're chopping along the edges. That one I did. That's going to go further down because it's right in between the two headstones, I think. And then our idea is we're going to roll this back.
That's not what you want.
Okay, so so far, look at that. Look at how it's in there like that. John Jackson, who died something first, 1864, age 63.
62.
And then John Bright, ouch, something just poked me. John Bright Jackson of the above, who died 1864, age 5 months. And then somebody, Jackson, man, something just stung me. Ouch, maybe it's an ant. This is incredible. Hopefully, maybe, if it's all undone.
John and Susanna Jackson, and it looks like there's a baby of 5 months, John Bright Jackson. John and Susanna are my 4th great grandparents. Colette's got the gloves, so I'm letting her pull it. I help shovel it. Yep. There's Susanna. Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's probably as good as I'm gonna get in this spot. We're probably gonna have to chop it in half. So here's our pile of sod, and here is the completed headstone. John Jackson, who died May 1st, 1864, age 62 years. Also John Bright Jackson, grandson of the above, who died March 3rd, 1864, aged 5 months. Susanna Jackson, wife of the above, died July 24th, 1868, 74 years. So we just need to find out who John Bright's parents are. Jared found the other spot where John Bright Jackson actually was buried, and it appears from what the record said that there are 5 babies all buried in the spot, so I want to uncover it. So where is it, right there?
65, 66, 67, 68.
So probably right here?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
All right, we're videoing again. Another grave digging. Tell us about this one, Colette.
So this one is where John Bright Jackson is actually buried. He's listed on the
So he's listed on the tombstone there. 1, 2, 3, fourth one over.
And the cemetery records or the
show he's actually buried here.
There's like 5 babies buried here, so I'd like to get it uncovered and see what it says. It's thick, but let's see. Oh, that came up pretty good. Is the right headstone?
We don't know yet.
Still building. I see a 4.
Well, it is 4. 43. 69.
And we need 68.
Yep.
Oh.
So we're gonna now.
Well, now we know where the edge
68.
is. It should be right somewhere here, right?
Yep,
I guess I can line it.
all right, so we're now coming over to 4368. We just uncovered 69, which we did not want. We wanted 68. John Bright Jackson, who we found his name listed over here last year with his grandparents, and then we were able to figure out his parents. 2 burial places down, 3 burial places down, he is buried. We found out yesterday, even though his name was on with his grandparents. And there's some other infants, we believe, buried in the same plot. So we're digging it, is digging it up to find out whose name is on this tombstone, if any. That should be the number right there.
And then chop it one more.
Chop it right there. Suspense is building. We're looking for 4368.
This is a lot thicker than over there.
4368.
I think it's been covered for like 100 years or more. All right, what is it?
Can't see it. 43. Yeah, can't see.
In memory?
In memory. We have in memory. That's a common phrase used on the tombstones here. For the number, we found it says son of. So it's someone's son.
Say,
You haven't got it.
I haven't got it yet.
No, you kind of dig the old one that we started.
Oh.
There.
Look how much dirt this
Normally
is.
there's the number up in the top right. So that's what we're expecting to find here. Oh, 4368. That's the number we were looking for. Right there.
Can you take a pic?
There she is.
Okay, so I decided to cut this like a pan of brownies instead of pulling it like I did last year. Make it easier.
This is where John Bright Jackson, that we found on the tombstone with his grandparents last year, is actually interred according to the burial records of the place. And there are several children.
16-month-old Peter Pemberton.
that we were told were buried in this plot as well.
George Henry Tatum, their son. Oh, George and Elizabeth Tatum. If he's buried in this, it makes me think that he's got to be related, because it says Peter Pemberton, son of George and Elizabeth Tatum, who died March 2nd, 1863, age 6 months. Also, George Henry Tatum, their son, who died September 20th, 1865, age... Holy fuck. Look at this. Also, Frederick Tatum, who died July 2nd, 1860, age 7 months. Also, George Tatum, father of the above, who died October 30th, 1875, age 30 years old. His sufferings were great but short. No hand his life could save. No of human aid could him release, nor save him from the grave. Also, 2 grandchildren. William, who died May 19th, 1893, age 2 years, 10 months. Maggie, who died June 6th of 1893, age 5 months. Wilson John, born October 11th, 1897, died October 8th, 1898. Oh my heck, Doris, born August 2nd, 1899, died June 19th, 1900. And Georgina, mother of the above children, born July 21st, 1861, died December 22nd. Oh my gosh. 1903. And George Bright is not even mentioned.
John Bright Jackson, not mentioned on there. But we were told, according to the burial records, that he is actually buried in this plot just 4 down from his grandparents.
right, here we are. We're at the Manchester General Cemetery. Didn't think we'd be back here again. This is where we found John Bright Jackson. And we discovered some things at the Manchester Library yesterday. So we're hoping to find some more information. So see what we find. No, I'm thinking it's one of the flat ones. Wow. This looks so different in a different light. I didn't think we were this far up.
No, I'm just coming up here to step up. $45.89. 46.80.
Yeah, 45.
Going up. $48.11.
We need 46.80. Oh. This one looks like it might be exposed.
47.
You think this is the 46 row right here?
This is 45 and that's 48.
Okay.
And it is.
See what this does have a number here? This is 63. 4663.
Going up.
4663. That went up to 70, so either they're going this way or they restart at the other side. Here's a number right here. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, this is 47.
46.49. So yes, it is going up for sure.
Okay. And what was our number again?
80.
Well, 70 was at the end. Oh, so do you think it's on the other side, maybe?
$76.
Oh, serious?
Yep. 77. No, not right there. So these are
77.
78.
78. Oh, there's one that's partially unclosed.
79. 80. It's right here. It's going to be 81. Yep.
Yep, that's 81. So they're right there under that moss and grass. We need another shovel. Oh my gosh, how far away was that place? This shouldn't be as hard to, it looks like this is more mossy. I can probably do it. Holy cow, had no idea that we would be back here at this cemetery. That was just life-changing a year and a half ago. And again, Jared is off to buy another shovel because his Crompton family is underneath grass like this. So all these headstones right in this area have not been photographed for Billy and Graves. So while I'm waiting for him to come back, I am going to take some photos. And luckily I've got my handy dandy Lululemon gloves that my girls got me hooked onto. So here we go. Holy cow. The first two headstones that I'm doing, oh man, hit me. I had the weirdest dream last night. I dreamt that I was going to have another baby, and I go into the living room and Jared's not there, and I'm wondering where he's at, and I try getting a hold of him and I can't make my phone work because they make us turn it off. And my mom's there, my dad's there, which was cool since my dad's passed away. I thought, oh, this is great, he's gonna be here. And then I see my Uncle Grant and I see my Aunt Joan, and she walks by and I said, wait, aren't you dead? And she gives me this little smile with a twinkle in her eye and kept walking. And I remember I kept trying to call Jared, and finally I got through on somebody else's phone, but he was talking to somebody else and couldn't hear me. And I wanted him to be here for the delivery of that baby. And it was such a weird dream. It just was weird, but my heart is just pricked right now because the first two headstones that I have seen, the first one I took a picture of, it says Betsy Ferguson, who died March 19th, 1846, aged 13 months. And then the next child, the next one on there is let's see, aged, it's hard to see. Can't read that one very well. Then the next headstone says Lydia Grace Johnson, who died March 9th, 1846, aged 7 months. Ah, thou sweetest smiling baby, mother's greatest love and joy, came to earth to smile upon us, and then took wing and soared on high. And then the next headstone, George R. Rainforth, who died January 30th, 1846, aged 6 weeks. So crazy. So I'm going to get as many of these headstones as I can. So here comes Jared with another shovel and my peppermint tea to keep me warm. All right, Jared got the shovel. Took out a little piece. We need what number?
4680.
4680.
This
and
is 4680.
oh my gosh, we're doing this again. Can't believe this. So crazy. This is absolutely crazy. All right. Yeah, this one's way easier than the other one.
All right, so we got a lot of moss on this bad boy. Found out yesterday that my fourth great grandparents are buried in the same cemetery as my other fourth great grandparents that we found last year. Last year we found a baby, a grandson, that was listed on their tombstone. We thought that they were buried there. We found out yesterday that John Bright Jackson was not buried there. But we're uncovering this one slowly. I'm letting Colette do it so I can video. I had an accident yesterday. I tumbled and fell by the river, slid, and injured myself. Blood and guts everywhere.
It's not blood and guts everywhere.
Not guts, but blood. And I'm quite sore. Anyway, I'm not going to complain. I'm grateful to be here. And 4680 is this number. They number their tombstones here in this massive cemetery. This doesn't do it justice because it just keeps going. I don't know how many thousands of people are buried here. Lady told us yesterday, but still digging. But the lady told us yesterday that they no longer bury people in this cemetery. She was cautioning us as well, saying it's not a safe place. Almost like you should have security if you're coming down here. And I chuckled because I'm like, this is where we came last year. But anyway, so we are here. I just went and bought another shovel. Still see the tag hanging from it. But we are finding the Cromptons right there. I just saw the Crompton name, my fourth great grandparents on my mother's side. So the Cromptons and the Jacksons' children married each other. And then those two children joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and immigrated to the United States of America.
Okay, I'll take a pic.
All right, so here we are.
Hold this back.
We are uncovering this mossy tombstone of my fourth great grandparents. Tombstone number 4680 in the Manchester General Cemetery.
Look at that.
We know based on who we saw yesterday in the burial records of who's buried here. There's several buried here. I'm trying to see who's on the tombstone. But there is my fourth great-grandfather who passed away at the age of 78. And his wife, my fourth great-grandmother, Alice, wife of William Crompton. She died in 1849 at 64 years of age. She was actually older than him, but he lived significantly longer. So, Colette is...
I'm working on it.
Working away. All right, here we are uncovering the bottom of it, and we find John Crompton. Died when he was 15 years old. So we got William Jr. and Sr., which their grandfather's name is William as well, by the way. But the grandfather's William, I should say. So there's 3 Williams in a row. But then you got John, Hannah, Alice, all right here.
It may not be on a mountain high or over the stormy sea. It may not be at the battle's front. My Lord will have need of me. But if by a still small voice he calls to paths that I do not know, I'll answer, dear Lord, with my hand in thine. I'll go where you want me to go. I will go where you want me to go, dear Lord, over mountain or plain or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord. I will be what you want me to be. Perhaps today there are loving words which Jesus would have me speak. There may be now in the past of sin someone for whom I should see. Oh, Savior, if thou wilt be my guide, though dark and rugged the way, my voice shall echo the message sweet. I'll say what you want me to say. I will go where you want me to go, dear Lord, over mountain or plain or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord. I will be what you want me to be. There's surely somewhere a lowly place in earth's harvest field so wide, where I may labor through life's short day for Jesus the crucified. So trusting my all to thy tender care, and knowing thou lovest me, I'll do thy will with a heart sincere. I'll be what you want me to be. I will go where you want me to go, dear Lord, over mountain or plain or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord. I'll be what you want me to be.